So, just as there is no one more deserving of the International Impact Award, there is no colleague more distinguished to give the Commitment to Internationalization Lecture than Karri Goeldner Byrne. First, let me give you some background on the award itself. Begun in 2016, our Commitment to Internationalization Lecture Series features experts in the field of international education. These experts, who come from both the public and private sectors, help foster ongoing campus-wide conversations about the UI's vision and strategic themes for campus internationalization. Among our strategic priorities are student success, research and discovery, engagement with local and international communities, as well as developing opportunities for collaboration at home and across the globe. Karri's talk this afternoon, entitled Navigating the Unpredictable, the Private Sector as Partners in Humanitarian Response, touches upon all these themes and priorities. We note that for the past several years, the international programs, in collaboration with numerous colleges at the University of Iowa, has sought to foster public-private partnerships to strengthen higher education. Our efforts in Kosovo with USAID readily come to mind, as do initiatives in India, the Middle East, and Sub-Saharan Africa. Given this context, Karri's work as a senior advisor and independent consultant with experience across 35 countries could not be more timely. Her expertise in helping organizations navigate complex economic challenges in some of the world's most demanding environments will serve as a great resource as we face an ever-changing global landscape. We look forward to learning from you, Karri, and with that, please, let's all give her the warmest of welcomes in anticipation of the Commitment to Internationalization Lecture for 2025.
Thank you, Dean Gannon, and thank you, Pia. Thank you, Dean Gannon, thank you, Pia, for this introduction, and thank you to the university for this incredible honor and opportunity to speak to you today. I'm just delighted to be talking to you about internationalization, and particularly to be doing it in this beautiful building, so rich with history. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I was really, really worried that it would not be possible to give a lecture on the commitment to internationalization because I was worried that we just don't have it anymore, and the commitment, I mean. But I read a study from the Rockefeller Foundation, and I knew that all of you sitting here today would want to hear about it. But before I do that, I think it's pretty clear from the news and the media these days that many people just don't really understand what it is that humanitarian development does, what it is. And so I thought I'd take just 2 minutes to briefly explain. I know they've given you a lot, but I'm going to keep going. Just give me a second to explain what humanitarian aid does. I'll talk a little bit more about market systems and why they're important in humanitarian contexts, and then we'll touch on kind of what comes next. So my job, put very simply, was to help businesses and households recover from or prepare for crisis. And by crisis, I really mean anything that the four horsemen of the apocalypse might throw at you. I have supported people through locusts in Sudan, meningitis in Uganda, elections violence in Kenya, earthquakes in Nepal, armyworm infestations in Somalia, droughts in Ethiopia, and outright civil war in a lot of places, frankly. And anyone who struggled during COVID, struggled financially, I think will probably understand what I did. You have all these plans for your life and your livelihoods, and then they just go out the window. The rules just simply change. And you're just trying to understand what do I need to do to keep afloat here? How do I keep my business going? How do I keep it together? That's who my team helped, people who were dealing with that kind of situation. And the businesses that I worked with were not relying solely on aid. they contributed about $3 for every $1 of US government aid, and in some cases it's actually 14 to 1. So if you're a numbers person, we're talking about returns on investment of 200% to over 1,000%. And to give you just one example from one country, one project in Ethiopia, what that meant was 5,600 jobs created, 340,000 people with access to finance. So what I mean by that is they get a job, they get a bank account, they get access to insurance. And we did that, and that resulted in a 78% increase in household income over 5 years, despite the fact there was a 3-year drought going on. As taxpayers, we did that. We did that not just in Ethiopia, but in 130 countries around the world, and we did it for $36.18 per person per year. In 2024, America actually spent more money on Netflix than they did on humanitarian aid. But, as many of you know, US foreign disaster assistance will drop this year by 83%. And the Lancet estimates that 14 million people will die as a result of those aid cuts and the way that they were handled. In addition, 250,000 professionals like Pia and myself who worked in the US and across the 130 countries that USAID worked in have lost their jobs. Those jobs, those American jobs, created local jobs as well, because that's how the aid system is built. There's so much unmet need. The unmet needs were in the range of $25 billion a year. And so every penny had to do double and triple work. Thankfully, the thousands who have lost their jobs also had already spent decades with disasters of all kinds, autocrats to Zika virus. And although we are heartbroken, we are not broken. We are literally experts at rising up from the rubble and building things out of nothing but dust and determination. We've done this before, and we've done it in a lot of places. We know that this doesn't have to be an ending. It can also be an opportunity if we want to look at it that way. And this can be an invitation to look with new eyes. Getting back to thinking about what does this mean, our commitment to internationalization? One of my colleagues put it like this: the reason that aid will continue to matter is because it is the champion for humanitarian principles and vulnerable people everywhere. That must be our compass. No matter how this system evolves, we must make sure that human dignity has a voice wherever decisions are made. When I started doing this humanitarian work, my aid colleagues thought it was a little bit weird because I had a business degree. I wasn't a doctor, I wasn't a water sanitation expert or engineer. I had a business degree. I was doing aid work. But for me, it was really obvious. The role of the private sector is to create jobs and contribute to a prosperous economy. And those things bring peace. And markets continue to operate even in the midst of crisis. And our role in aid was to make sure that that was done transparently and fairly. So we looked at systems. Why is this system not already doing what it should be doing? How can we fix the system? Because if we fix the system, then we can help not just that one and that one and that one, but we can help everyone who uses that system now and into the future. And what none of you would know is that in the aid community, there's a really strong culture of what we call failing forward. So the work is not easy, and the situations are complex, and things just don't always go the way you expect them that they are going to go. But every disappointment, every time they don't go the way you expected, that's an opportunity to learn. And so for years, we grappled with that complexity, and we rigorously gathered data so that we could keep doing the work better, reaching more people, creating more sustainable results, making the money go further. And that's also part of the reason that we worked with the private sector. Aid organizations are the custodians of resources, but the private sector already has the relationships, the networks in place. They know how to move fast in their own local area. And I think we saw something similar here in Iowa after the derecho in 2020. Community groups were some of the first ones to respond, but government assistance was needed for the larger things that individual community groups couldn't manage on their own. And in the same way, international aid is designed to complement that local capacity, what local groups and local governments can do on their own, and bring those extra resources where they're needed and that expertise. So, I mean, it's a bit different in Madagascar and Uganda and Nigeria, but also not. I mean, farmers are farmers everywhere. Storms come, politics comes, and farmers keep farming. It's what they do. And when they do it, they keep everyone else fed. So it was our job to support the farmers, because when I'm sitting here talking about businesses, I absolutely recognize that farms are businesses too. And let me give you an example. Mercy Corps, who I worked with for so many wonderful years, has a program in South Sudan where they work with seed suppliers to make sure that the seeds and other inputs can cross over conflict lines. They help the suppliers buy in greater bulk, access fuel when it's running short, because they recognize that if fields can get planted, then hunger can be avoided in the future, right? So even as civil war rages, there's this opportunity to prevent further harm if the seeds are in the right place at the right time. Now, I worry that it's going to be hard in our current context to look with those new eyes and to be honest about what is working and what is not working in international programs. I don't feel confident that we can talk honestly about what's working and what's not, and that means it's going to be hard for us to continue learning. Because learning requires a level of trust that I am not sure that we have right now. But we can't give up on it. We have to be brave enough to keep learning and keep doing things differently. What we are about to witness is going to be a profound change from government-led solutions to a much more dynamic, decentralized system. And in the short term, I worry, I suspect that aid is going to get a little bit Wild West. If you look at the recent response to Hurricane Melissa down in the Caribbean, the pre-positioning capacity is gone. The ability to respond in multiple locations is gone. We just no longer have the structures to move quickly or keep things coordinated. But it's really too early to predict what is going to happen to aid or what it's going to look like in the future. And I think that's why we have a responsibility to create, to think about it and create it. Because right now, in the world, there are 91 autocracies and 89 democracies. The actions that we choose right now, every action, we are writing the footnotes in the history books. So how do we make sure that those actions are transparent and fair and a voice for human dignity? I promised to tell you about a recent report from the Rockefeller Foundation. It's called Build a Shared Future. They spoke to 36,000 people in 34 countries and asked them about global collaboration, about internationalization. And they found that the support for global collaboration is real, but it is very fragile. Over 90% of those who were surveyed saw international cooperation as critical for things like food and water security, conflict prevention, trade and economic development, poverty and job creation. But global cooperation was seen as closely linked to how people viewed their own economic future. Economic optimism seems to go hand in hand with a strong backing for internationalism and international cooperation. People are significantly more supportive when they think other people like themselves will benefit, and that's particularly true in rural areas and with really vulnerable populations. But here's what I found striking, it gave me a little bit of hope, and that was that the differences in whether someone believed in the value of that cooperation. Here in the US, no matter where they sat on the political spectrum, there was actually much less difference in their belief in that potential than we see in other countries. So it looks like from the data, and I can hear that I'm a technical data person, we still do believe in internationalism. We just don't know if it's solving the problems, and we don't know where we personally fit in. So this is where I would like to issue an invitation to all of you. I'd like to invite you to think about an issue that's important to you, and more importantly, the systems around that issue. So if you're not familiar with the Sustainable Development Goals, 17 goals that deal with development issues around the world, I encourage you to Google that when you get home. But right now, just think about that one thing that is important to you and the one thing that you could do to engage with those systems. In a big or small way, it doesn't matter. Because you see, when you look at problems through a systems lens, you start to understand how little actions add up really, really quickly. For me personally, because I believe that business can be a force for good, there are 3 specific things that I'm going to commit to in the year ahead. Those 3 ways are me putting my money where my values are. So the first thing is to give my time and money to organizations like Markets in Crisis or Kiva, and continue to support entrepreneurs and local organizations, and in that way continue the work that I've been doing for 30 years of supporting businesses. The second thing is, as we look at these sort of looming trade wars on the horizon, I'm going to make sure that I'm buying products that are aligned with my values. Sometimes that's going to mean buying really, really locally, and other times it's going to be conscientiously choosing fair trade products or ethical products. For me, I feel like those are a way to make an immediate, like an investment that pays off right away. That business knows that my values are aligned with them when I buy their goods. And the third thing is it's a long-term payoff. It's impact investing. Now, in the early days of responsible investing or impact investing, one of the big arguments against it was that the returns aren't as good. We're all worried about our pensions, our retirement funds, and you gotta draw the line somewhere. But now, after kind of 25 years of having those investment products in place, it's not proving to be true. Because you see, the businesses that are focusing on environmental and social and governance issue are actually avoiding risks that other businesses face. So the returns from impact investing are turning out to be roughly the same as kind of standard investing. But when you talk to investment managers, and they will tell you that the reason that they aren't doing more impact investing with their clients is because People don't ask. So ask. Those are my 3 actions. We've been talking about the importance of viewing aid and our own actions in the world through a systems lens. And that's going to require us to embrace complexity. And, you know, in our world today, we try to capture the truth in a text or a meme or a TikTok, and it's just not that easy. Embracing complexity requires a curiosity and a respect. And curiosity allows us to kind of hold the patience to hold contradictions as we look at things and see different sides of a truth without collapsing into cynicism or naivete. And I think we really need that right now. And respect recognizes, as I've been saying all along, it recognizes that dignity and potential in every person. And I would suggest that armed with these 2, we're actually more adaptable and better able to manage the chaos that we're handling right now. Adaptability is not a lack of spine. It's a clear-eyed vision of what a system should look like, and the recognition of that there are many ways to get there and many ways that you can contribute with curiosity and respect. So these are ways to directly support those who've lost their safety net in 2025. How are you going to support the systems that create positive change in our world, that show that commitment to internationalization? I have faith that we'll be okay. And that faith isn't naive. It's born of 3 decades of watching people overcome crises. The world is full of resilient people who are waiting for an opportunity. And together we can create that opportunity. Small actions taken with curiosity and respect can make a difference. It's about living our values and about making sure that human dignity has a voice wherever decisions are made. Aid will look different in the future, and right now, it's unclear what's going to emerge from this moment. I'm reassured because I know that wherever my former colleagues go, they will bring with them the integrity of the humanitarian charter and a focus on dignity and an intensity of purpose. And they will be the ones who remind us that human lives are not just metrics. So I'm going to leave you with one last story that for me kind of illustrates why systems matter for the people that are in them. The last piece of work I did was in Yemen. And I did a market study to find out what opportunities would be there for improving incomes and improving food security. And they had this beautiful, long coastline in Yemen. And for years and years, they exported tuna. But after 11 years of war, that infrastructure is all gone. And so the fish that comes out of the ocean, it spoils very, very quickly, which leads to food waste, it leads to loss of income, and it leads to overfishing. And the solution, you can probably guess by now, wasn't a handout. It was an investment in the fisheries system. And the program that I designed helped fish brokers to purchase a solar-powered refrigerator. So that blew my mind a little bit at first, right? The sun is going to make things cold. Got it? We split the equipment cost with them so they could get the right equipment to meet the demand that was there. And with an investment of just $300, it resulted in doubling their profits within the first month and reducing waste by 60%. So when I returned to review the pilot project and see how we could expand it, and what have we learned, I was talking to the fish broker at his shop, and it's, we're out on the street, and all these people are gathering around, the customers and the other business people, and fishermen, random people who happen to be walking by. I'm like, oh, what are you you talking about? Cars are going by, it's all dusty. And this crowd, as I'm talking to the fish broker, this crowd is listening really intently to my questions, to what the translator is saying. And when the conversation wrapped up and I had gotten all my little questions asked, they broke out into spontaneous applause. It had never happened in 30 years. And it wasn't me they were applauding. Their joy was in celebrating a solution, an investment that was giving them back their dignity, their ability to provide for themselves. They felt seen. And that is the power of systemic thinking. That is the power of believing in people. What I learned in 30 years is that we don't move forward by solving everything. We move forward by doing something. So what is your something? Be brave. Be intentional with it. Because nothing that is important is ever done alone. Thank you.